Welcome to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
And we're streaming live on X, Twitch, YouTube, but unfortunately not Rumble. I spent the past hour, maybe you caught the test stream, trying to stream using Rumble Studio just to bring my business over to a company that, I don't know, hasn't yet been corrupted by the corporate virus yet. I don't know. It seems like, I mean, and with the experience of the company that I work for, which I've never mentioned on this podcast for, I would think, obvious reasons. Once you go public, then you basically have to sell out your customers and your employees to serve the shareholders who really don't contribute anything, I would say, to the actual operation of the company, because you're supposed to get your, oh, whoops, I didn't mean to push that button. I'm adjusting my lights in real time. Welcome to the show. We should just all, I mean, the point, I'm not trying to besmirch Rumble. We should always be vigilant, I suppose, in our assessment of companies and their behavior. I am really not loving this. Oh, there we go. That was pretty easy. Got a little bit too blue. Yeah, that's better. And I was also, I went to Craigslist during the test stream to see, to just kind of get the feel of switching back and forth on screens in Rumble Studio and see how that all worked out, and noticed how dramatic the white light emanating from the monitor was on the overall picture. Speaking of, how does it look? What do you think? I got a different, I'm using my own background. I think actually I had Grok make this for me. Because I want to get rid of, oh, that's interesting. Everything is flipped here. I wonder if there's a way, there's probably not a way to change that now that I am. Maybe I can do it from here. But I don't think, no, because this isn't controlling any of OBS. It all looks great in OBS. Damn it. Maybe there's a way. No. You know what? I feel like if I fiddle with it now, everything is going to get screwed up. So we'll just have to deal with it backwards. Maybe it's not going out backwards. Maybe I just see it as backwards. Isn't that interesting? It all looked great on the test stream in Rumble Studio. I guess you'll have to take my word for it, or cruise over to Rumble, to the earthvox podcast, and see what you see. You know, it's entirely possible that it was flipped on Rumble as well, and I just didn't notice at the time. I couldn't figure out, it's really Rumble. If I had some constructive feedback, constructive criticism, would be to look at what other platforms are doing and try to emulate the user interface. It's not super intuitive. It's not, I mean, even working with Rumble, Riverside.fm, the user interface is smooth and straightforward. I mean, with the exception of the renaming issue that I had, and I assume continued to have. I don't know what this stream is called. I tried to rename it. It's renamed here. It will be renamed in the audio version. But it's just not we're not figuring it out. You can't dig in and find the answers to the questions that you have because the operation is so bare bones, and I'm not finding where I go to get the separate tracks that it says that I can have for this set of audio and my my hypothetical guest's audio and the audio of the clips that I play. But I have been working on it, and I know I start out every show talking about what I've been working on, because really, if it's not work, it's podcasts with as much family and free time as I can squeeze in there. And I feel kind of jealous of other podcasters that have more interesting things going on in their lives because they're actors or comedians or longtime radio personalities that are traveling all over the country and uh, experiencing all kinds of interesting things that they can then, sort of capture and notes and relay to their audience when the mics go on and it's time to start making content. I toil in a basement that doesn't look a lot different from what you see behind me, trying to figure out lights and green screens and recording software and streaming software. And at this point, it's pretty boring. But the news was anything but boring this weekend, or this week. I just totally glossed over what I had in my notes to initially talk about, which is fine. Because as I said, the point is to speak about something interesting that isn't the news immediately, because really the news is kind of gross. It all kind of feels like propaganda, even coming from the conservatives, which are supposed to be, I don't know what, the party of religion, the party of integrity. It's really, I mean, this is one of the best things about Trump being the president, right? It was the same in 2017 through his first administration. And now here we are again, Trump just working tirelessly to expose to us what's really going on in our government. And it all kind of, this recent Senate budget, I had my notes constructed at the beginning of the week. The Senate passed a budget bill. And that was very exciting because I would say we have more questionable political personalities on the Republican side in the Senate than we do in Congress in terms of percentages, I would say, because of course there's 435 members of Congress and only 100 members in the Senate between Republicans and Democrats. The Senate vibe of the complete makeup feels a lot more shady than the Congress vibe of 435 congressmen. But we have from Fox News, let me get my bearings here. I just went from Rumble Studio back to Riverside because unfortunately, I think I'm just going to have to hijack Rumble and continue using Riverside to get this content streaming on Rumble. But we have this headline from Fox News: Trump's big, beautiful tax agenda scores major victory in House despite GOP rebellion threats. Let me just jump over here to my digital audio workstation and change a setting quickly. It's become kind of distracting. Oh no, that was too much. Too much. Dial it back, Turbo. And we'll bring this up a tad. All right. So again, the headline. My apologies. Trump's big, beautiful tax agenda scores major victory in House despite GOP rebellion threats. Why would the GOP rebel against the Trump agenda? Well, it's because the people that are, we'll get into it. From the article, in a massive victory for President Donald Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, the House of Representatives passed a bill Thursday that will set the stage for a massive conservative policy overhaul. The legislation passed mostly along party lines on Thursday morning, after a long night of negotiations between House GOP leaders and fiscal hawks who were critical of its spending cut levels. This is what the Senate bill ran into. the Senate bill, let me see. I'll get the verbiage here. And then there's another uh funny line in this article where the Republican Congress people were mad that they had to be there to sort of, I don't know, waste their time. I mean, what are they honestly doing? While Mike Johnson negotiated with the few holdouts that didn't want to vote the bill through. And one unnamed congressperson characterized it as playing grab ass while they did these. Here it is. He kept the entire conference out on the floor for 80 minutes while you play grab ass with these people, the GOP lawmaker fumed. Yeah, he's got a country club to get to. He's got old fashions to ingest. He can't be bothered to negotiate a good budget deal for the American people. And what have you been doing? So the Senate bill didn't have enough spending cuts for Congress because the bill, I guess, has to be identical according to the law in order for it to make it to Trump. The Senate has to pass it, the Congress has to pass it, and then it goes to Trump to sign it. And Trump can, of course, say, no, this isn't what I wanted. I'm not going to sign it. But once again, we're up against a government shutdown. And it feels like games to me. So the Senate spending bill only had $4 billion in tax cuts over some period of time, which wasn't good enough for the Republicans in Congress to just sign on and vote it into law. So they rejiggered a few things, put in 1.5 trillion in budget cuts, but that's over the next 10 years. So the Republicans have agreed on a budget, and now the Senate has said, yes, this budget that Congress passed is good enough for us. We'll vote yes on it. But now they have to get together and really decide how to spend the budget. So they say, okay, we have this whole big budget, the big, beautiful bill, and now we have to vote on it further to decide really what we're going to do with this. I mean, does that sound stupid to anyone else? I mean, it bugs the hell out. Like, what have you guys been doing this whole time? Obviously, we know what the budget needs to go to. Now they're on a 2-week vacation. So I guess we'll just wait patiently. Meanwhile, I'm working 50 hours a week to feed my kids, if not more. You guys, the U.S. government can just take a 2-week vacation. And how often, I mean, my God, I just got to ask Grok, how often does the U.S. Congress go on, what's it called? Recess. Best part of school. The U.S. Congress typically goes on recess several times a year, with the schedule varying based on the legislative calendar, holidays, and election cycles. Here's a general breakdown. Have a look. August recess, usually the longest, lasting about 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks in August. They're on a Europe schedule. I remember being astonished when in my late teens, I worked at furniture delivery shop or furniture warehouses. I was a delivery guy. And we learned that because a lot of the stuff, it was like mid-range furniture, not super high-end, but not like IKEA. We learned that the stuff that people would order that was made in Italy would have like an added month of lead time. Because in Italy and other European countries, they take like the whole month of August off. Well, Congress does that too. How nice of them to take the month of August off while we all continue working and paying our taxes. Spring recess, often 1 to 2 weeks around March or April, aligning with holidays like Easter or Passover. Summer recess, shorter breaks in June or July, sometimes tied to Independence Day. Fall winter recess, 1 to 2 weeks around Thanksgiving, and a longer break from mid-December through early January for Christmas and New Year's. This is actually how Woodrow Wilson slammed the Federal Reserve Act through in 1913 and made us all slaves to banks for going on 115 years now. Thanks, buddy. If I had a time machine, that's one thing I'd rectify real quick. And then election recess. In even-numbered years, Congress often recesses in October and early November to allow members to campaign. How generous. I guess this is the slow plod of government that people talk about. And there's a slow plod. I mean, can people get their asses in gear? I mean, why do we tolerate this in the public sector? Like, most of us work in the private sector. We know how it works. We know that efficiency is expected. I mean, we're talking about a budget here. We're talking about how much money we're spending on all of this stuff. But of course, we can't expect these people to vote on to legislate less vacation for themselves, just like we can't expect them to legislate term limits for themselves. I mean, geez, this is a way better gig than being a teacher. I thought having 2 months off in the middle of the summer was the hit. I mean, not the only making 40 grand a year part, but sometimes the work isn't worth the money. So Congress agreed on this bill that closely resembles, I mean, it's basically the only point of contention between the Senate and Congress on this budget bill was that Congress felt like the Senate bill didn't have enough cuts in it. But still, we only have $1.5 trillion over 10 years. So now Elon Musk is coming out and saying, yeah, we're only going to get this much. We're only going to get this much done. And the left seizes on this to make it a huge headline because Elon Musk said, whatever, $1 billion a day or $4 billion a day or whatever, which they found they were accomplishing. However, it doesn't really work if Congress won't legislate that these cuts actually need to happen. We're definitely not getting as much savings as I would like. But if we cut the waste, then there will be more money in the institutions to accomplish what they're intended to accomplish. I mean, it's not like we're letting them keep the credit card. But I mean, along with most Americans, I think, sound-minded Americans would really like us to do better. It's clear Doge has exposed a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the work that they've been doing since late January. But it doesn't help if Congress won't actually enact the cuts and take the money away. And I want to be positive and optimistic so that I can feel and help you feel like we're not living in a country that's circling the drain. But when things like this happen, I just think it's all fake. It's all fake. It's all made up, and nobody's really working to correct course. We're heading for a cliff. We're sailing towards the edge of the world, or the whirlpool in that Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And the people responsible for putting us in this position, they should be prosecuted. I mean, one of the reasons that we're in the position that we're in now is because of the terrible trade deals that have been enacted since the Clinton era, where we're allowing, as I've expressed before on this show, adversarial foreign and corporate interests to loot the country. And this is what has been going on for the last 4 years. This is why everybody is screeching about Donald Trump taking office. I feel like it's a gross dereliction of duty. You're letting us, these politicians, our politicians that are supposed to lead this country and run it efficiently, while we all go to work to earn the money that they take directly out of our paychecks for taxes, have been cutting backdoor deals with foreign countries who then turn around and contribute massive amounts of cash to their charity organizations, to non-governmental organizations, to universities, which can then turn and contribute to their campaigns. That's why nobody wanted Doge. And why everybody's whining about it. It's kind of an old article from earlier in the week, April 7th. Trump's most loyal supporters are begging him to do tariff deals, is the headline from Politico. Most Republicans on Capitol Hill aren't yet breaking with Donald Trump over his massive global tariffs, but some of the president's most loyal supporters are hinting that they want the deal maker in chief to get busy and fast. Well, how did that turn out? I mean, we know it was quite a circus. Quite a circus. All week long. I have more on that. Because the story, I mean, it's still developing to this day. The Supreme Court gave Trump a win from the New York Times, courtesy of Citizen Free Press, who provided the archived version. Supreme Court overturns lower court's block on Venezuelan deportations. However, there is a little bit of a caveat that developed with this. Remember that Judge Boasberg, as Trump was deporting these illegal immigrants, Venezuelan gang members and terrorists, because they have actually some gangs and cartels were classified by the Trump administration as actual, legal, verifiable terrorist organizations. As Trump began deporting these terrorists, the judges stepped in to say, no, you can't do that. Turn the plane around. So, of course, it went to appeal, and the Supreme Court upheld the Trump administration and said, yes, in fact, actually, he can use the Alien Enemies Act to deport violent gang members. Well, the latest development on this deal, there was one case that a judge ruled the U.S. had to facilitate the return of an alleged MS-13 gang member who apparently hired a great lawyer because let's see. The legacy media called it a big loss for Trump because the judge ruled that he had to bring this one individual back. But what they didn't tell you is that the U.S. courts have no authority over El Salvador, which is where this guy is going, or is right now. And basically, the judge ruled that he can face trial in the U.S. if El Salvador ever decides to release him. And it's, I mean, doesn't it kind of feel, as this information develops, doesn't it kind of feel like Trump knew that this was going to happen? Trump knew that we had Marxist sympathizers in the judiciary that were going to rule against him on everything and attempt to continue the controlled demolition of this country. I don't think this guy is ever coming back. Trump would have to really piss off El Salvador. And by the way, props to El Salvador and their leader Bukele for having our back in the United States and Donald Trump's back in his efforts to right the ship that is the United States sailing off the edge of the world. The Supreme Court also sided with Trump on reinstating probationary federal workers fired by Trump. So he fired all these federal employees who were hired by the Biden admin. And they were in there. So he fired all these federal employees hired by Biden, but they were still within their probationary period. And another Democrat activist judge tried to block him. From the Epic Times, Supreme Court blocks reinstatement of fired federal workers for now. The Supreme Court on April 8th blocked a lower court order that mandated the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of federal employees who were let go in mass firings meant to downsize the federal government. Trump asked the high court to intervene after a lower court judge ordered the administration to reinstate thousands of probationary workers to their jobs after they were terminated earlier this year. Why is this federal judge? Why is this federal judge doing this? Because they're all in the club. They're all in the Stop Trump Club. And they will abuse their power in any and all ways that they can to bring Trump down, to stop what Trump wants to do for the United States that we all voted for. Some 80 million, majority of counties, majority of states, all wanted him to do. Because somebody's pulling the strings. I mean, people are really, really upset at Amy Coney Barrett, the Trump admin's latest, I think, Supreme Court justice, who has, I think, sided with the liberals more than she's sided with the conservatives because she's a coward. And I don't know any other way to describe it. Someone's in her ear telling her that they're going to kill her family if she doesn't rule for the New World Order. So that's what she's been doing. And it's been a disappointment, and people are calling for her to resign, although I don't really think that that's going to happen. What do you say we talk about some tariff news? It's been popping off, and some people are upset. Some people are fine. I feel like the people that are upset are going to be amplified the most by not just leftist media, but also conservative media, because that's what's going to get the clicks. Especially on the conservative side. Think about it. Your average Trump supporting conservative is scrolling through their conservative media and they see some headlines that, oh, maybe that person you elected to be president isn't doing the greatest job, or he isn't doing the job that you hoped he was going to do. It gets clicks. It gets clicks. It creates fear. It creates talking points. It creates issues to campaign on. And that's why I feel like what gets us tuned in the most? When they say they're going to shut the government down. Oh no, they're going to shut the government down. It's going to be so terrible. So we're all clicking and watching. And all of these congressmen now have an issue to campaign on. They all have a reason to send you emails. They all have something that they can point to that says, look, we're working hard for you. We're fighting for you. It's why reparations always comes up for Democrat campaigns. It's why student loan forgiveness always comes up for Democrat campaigns. It's why these issues are never solved. It's why there's been a budget issue for the last forever. Because we can campaign on it. We can make headlines. We can get screen time. We can get a little clout. That's why we didn't get all the cuts that we wanted. Because think about what happens. I mean, think about what the guardrails look like if you tell the government and the American people, hey, we've solved this debt crisis. We jacked tariffs up to crazy levels. We've got all this money coming in. We can pay down all these debts and we'll be looking great. They go, well, that's boring. We can't keep people excited and interested in us and our campaigns and in politics in general if we solve all of the problems. What a crock. Is that the job that we're paying our politicians to do? It was quite a week for Trump and his tariff policies, despite all of the turmoil. He went with all the tariffs that he promised, and the market crashed because the market is stupid. People lost a lot of value in their stock portfolio. They didn't lose a lot of money. People looked at that big number, 2 weeks ago and said, I'm rich. They didn't have more money in the bank. They didn't have another vacation home that they suddenly lost. They saw the value of their stock portfolio crash. So the media lost their mind, used that as a reason to drag Trump, as they always do. And then people came to negotiate. So many countries came to negotiate that Trump said, we got to put a pause on all these tariffs so we have time to negotiate. Because so many people came running. Trump said, I'm going to tariff you into the ground. And they said, hold on. Let's not get too hasty. We can be friendly. Then the market soared. And everyone who was smart enough to buy some stocks when they were tanking for 2 days made a lot of money. Further illustrating how stupid the market is. And now everybody's accusing Trump, the Democrats, of course, they're all accusing Trump of insider trading and saying, he did. It was all out in the open. He said, I'm gonna put these tariffs into effect. Everybody's getting 90%, 37%, 57%, 24%. And then they went into effect. And the market crashed. And everybody was big mad at Trump. Oh no, I lost all this money. Then he paused them all. The EU came to the table and said 0 for 0 tariffs. Colin Rugg writes, the European Union says they're ready to negotiate with the United States, says they've offered 0 for 0 tariffs. Let's watch the video.
We stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal. So we keep it on the table. But we are also...
They're always ready for a good deal, and they keep it on the table. But for some reason, our politicians just let all of these countries rip us off for years and years and years. I asked Grok to give me the rundown on tariff developments, and he wrote, recent U.S. tariff developments include a 90-day pause on most country-specific tariffs, reducing them to a 10% baseline effective April 9th, 2025, to encourage negotiations with over 75 countries. That's good negotiating. Say, I'm going to do this. They go, hold on. We're going to work something out. He goes, okay, I'll pause this. Let's talk. You want to talk? Let's talk. You don't want to rip us off anymore? Well, that's a good first step. Tariffs on China escalated to 125% or 145% total because you include the prior tariffs, prompting China's retaliatory 125% tariffs on U.S. goods. Canada and Mexico face no new reciprocal tariffs, with USMCA compliant goods exempt, while non-compliant goods carry 25% tariffs. 10% for energy. Negotiations are ongoing with Japan and others seeking deals, but no major agreements are finalized. Furthermore, the EU has proposed a 0 for 0 tariff deal covering industrial goods like cars, pharmaceuticals, and machinery to eliminate tariffs if the U.S. reciprocates. Other countries' offers include Vietnam, Taiwan, Argentina, and Israel reportedly offered 0 tariffs on U.S. goods and services, aiming for tariff-free trade. India also moving toward near 0 tariffs, with discussions ongoing. Japan, South Korea, and Australia have no new tariffs planned. They're open to negotiations for reduced or 0 tariffs. Canada and Mexico, no new tariffs, as we covered with the USMCA compliant goods, the previous trade agreement facilitated by the Trump administration. However, China, no 0 tariff offer. Instead, retaliatory tariffs of 125% on U.S. goods. These offers are fluid, with many countries negotiating to avoid escalation. Thank you, Grok. So while the EU and other countries come to the negotiating table, China wants to play hardball. They've banned Hollywood movies, and they've canceled the agreement to sell TikTok. And I think this is why Trump paused that deal to use as a negotiation tool. Other conservative personalities are real upset that Trump hasn't banned TikTok as he said he would if it weren't sold to another, to an American company. I think it's clear that Trump has paused this for negotiating reasons. And but I really don't know what he is hoping to accomplish with China. And I don't know what China is hoping to accomplish with these retaliatory tariffs. And I hate to say it, but it's these kind of things that lead to wars. I mean, this is what caused Japan to attack Pearl Harbor at the beginning of World War II. Because oil and other essential products were being cut off. And Japan got pissed and said, okay, have some bombs. Have some kamikazes in Hawaii. Which was a big mistake on their part. I mean, hindsight being 2020. They wakened the sleeping giants. Here's more on China. From CNBC, China strikes back with 100% tariffs on U.S. goods as trade war intensifies. So the clock is ticking. China on Friday retaliated against U.S. President Donald Trump's country-specific tariffs by raising its levies on U.S. goods to 125% from 84%. The Chinese finance ministry said, quote, even if the U.S. continues to impose higher tariffs, it will no longer make economic sense and will become a joke in the history of world economy, the ministry said in a statement, according to a CNBC translation. With tariff rates at the current level, there is no longer a market for U.S. goods imported into China, the statement noted, adding that if the U.S. government continues to increase tariffs on China, Beijing will ignore. That, I mean, on its face, I mean, this is CNBC. They're going to be anti-Trump administration, anti-America, anti-conservative. They are not helping China sound good. That sounds like a pretty dumb decision. And China's always posturing. Kevin O'Leary says China deserves worse. And I think I agree, because there's even rumors that that China is going to stop cooperating on fentanyl and its flood into the country and its effects on the lives of Americans and the deaths of 100,000 Americans a year. That's what they're threatening now. They've accepted that it's they're responsible for it, and they're going to throw that in to the trade negotiations. How can they justify that? Kevin O'Leary went on CNN this week and made a lot of headlines with these statements.
104% tariffs in China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
It's short-lived. There will be,
but what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
But that's not the case. Maybe we do need 400% tariffs. I say I say maybe yes. 400% tariffs. Because what kind of scum says, nah, we're gonna keep the illegal drugs flowing into your country and killing your people? I don't know what I would do if I was in charge. It wouldn't be very nice. I might catch that clip and go, you know what? Yeah, maybe we do have, maybe we do need 400% tariffs. Here's the article from the Daily Caller regarding the alleged end of cooperation on fentanyl mitigation. The headline, China floats possibility of killing more Americans in response to tariffs. Two bloggers linked to China's government, so Chinese Communist Party propagandists, floated the idea of upping the flow of deadly fentanyl into the U.S. in retaliation to President Trump's tariffs. CNBC's Eunice Yoon reported Tuesday. Both New Tankeen and a blogger known as Rabbit Chairman posted messages on Chinese social media suggesting the state was preparing to end cooperation with the U.S. on fentanyl, according to screenshots which Yoon posted to X. And you can see the screenshots here if you're watching the video on X, Twitch, or YouTube. Yoon, CNBC's Beijing bureau chief, also noted that one of the bloggers was a known nationalist, while the other was affiliated with XH News. XH News, like virtually all media in China, is state-controlled. Bloomberg's Mimin Lo noted. I would not recommend this course of action. Maybe China could get away with this shit when Joe Biden was the president, but I don't believe this will happen with Donald Trump in office. So the tariffs continue, and that means that all of the cheap Chinese garbage that you used to get at Walmart and order off of Amazon and Temu, that's going to start getting more expensive. I say buy American. I say go without for a while if you must. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Save your money for a while. Is that going to kill you? I'm speaking, of course, to the hypothetical libtard listening to the show who loves to rail against the Trump administration. We're gonna be fine. Especially because Trump has exempted phones, computers, and chips from the new tariffs. So we won't be seeing $4,000 iPhones, $2,000 PlayStation 5s. From this article, courtesy of CNBC, President Donald Trump exempted smartphones, computers, and other tech devices and components from his reciprocal tariffs. New guidance from U.S. Customs and Border Protection shows. The good news is, and this, I just love this because it really bothers me that I can't find anything made in America when I go into Walmart. It really bothers me that I can't find anything made in America on Amazon. And I'm not even on Amazon, but the same goes for eBay. eBay and Amazon are flooded with what they call non-branded devices that are likely stolen IP from the United States and or other countries. And Kevin O'Leary is really brave for speaking out on this issue because he does business in China. And the Chinese Communist Party is not going to be happy to hear that he has these positions on the way China is doing business. The Chinese government, I need to stress, is doing business with international companies that want to have operations in China. They will literally kick the door down and steal your intellectual property. And in 24 hours, you will see the product that you invented for sale on Temu for far less than you could ever hope to sell your products in the small business setting that you find yourself in. This is why we don't have any new players, new companies to the party. Because the big companies will exhaust plenty. Oh, goodness, excuse me. Bigger companies will exhaust large amount of resources to either buy out your company or stop you from rising through the ranks. They will crush your visibility. No one will know you're even a company. Like no one knows that this is a podcast. So please share right now. Just come on. Dig your phone out. Click that share button. Pull up your podcast app. Hit 5 stars. And leave me a nice review. Because we're all going through it at this level. We all have to deal with big tech suppressing us because of our opinions. With bigger shows holding us down because they don't want to give up any of their market share. It seems to be the way business is done now on this planet. And it's nauseating. We have more on the Doge front, which we covered a little bit last week. Further developments from @townhall.com, which is townhall.com on X. Astonishing numbers. Non-citizen Social Security numbers issued over the past 4 years. 270,425 in 2021. This is Social Security numbers issued to non-citizens. 590,000 in 2022, almost 1 million in 2023, and 2,095,247 in 2024. Quote, Doge found that immigration gave a work authorization document to illegals just 5 months after they entered the country, claiming asylum or what have you.
Fox to reveal what's really going on. Doge exposed our immigration asylum disaster. That was the tip of the iceberg. Now, here's the story. Doge has found that immigration gave a work authorization document to illegals just 5 months after they filed for asylum. That document allowed them to work while they waited to hear whether their asylum request had been accepted or denied. So they could work as an illegal, knowing it would take years before their case was heard. The Immigration Department mailed them a Social Security number. No interview, no proof of identity. Just put it in the mail. Here's your number. In 2021, Doge says 270,000 new aliens were issued Social Security numbers, 590,000 in 2022, 964,000 in 2023, and 2.1 million in 24, right before Biden left office. Doge also discovered that 1.3 million aliens are now receiving Medicaid. Millions received driver's licenses. Some registered to vote, and Doge says some actually did vote. Try and square that against Democrat claims that Musk is destroying Social Security and cutting Medicaid. He's not destroying.
And this ties into what I spoke about earlier in the show. Just because we're not getting all of the cuts that we want doesn't mean that getting rid of this fraud isn't going to make things better. I hope we're going to now have 1.5 million illegal immigrants not leeching off of the Medicaid system, which will result in more money for legal immigrants and other Americans that rely on Medicaid for their health care. And maybe we just have to be patient with this process, right? Because you know how it goes. It's the old cliche. If you don't spend the money during this fiscal year, you're not going to have it next year. Okay, great. Let that play out. Let's all just calm down. I mean, based on what we learned with the spending budget negotiations, I think we should all be really excited that things are even happening at this pace. Tulsi Gabbard made headlines. Gotta love Tulsi Gabbard, former senator from Hawaii. Made massive headlines this week when she exposed that, yes, election machines really are vulnerable.
We're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time and vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
We should all have faith in the integrity of our elections. It doesn't matter if we're Republicans or Democrats. What we don't need is for people to turn a blind eye because their candidate is the one that got elected. And really, we really have to rely on the integrity of the people that we elect to lead this country. Because power and riches corrupt an individual. And we've known that this has been going on for a long time. Democrat lawmakers knew that this has been going on, and now we're going to watch a 20-minute compilation. We're not really going to watch a 20-minute compilation, but we're going to watch a few minutes of them all complaining about it years ago.
Virginia just stopped using touchscreen computer voting because it's so vulnerable.
Right.
We need to look at all the voting machines. Every Secretary of State needs to be, assisted in making sure that they are not being hacked and attacked.
I continue to think that our voting machines are too vulnerable.
Researchers have repeatedly demonstrated that ballot recording machines and other voting systems are susceptible to tampering.
Even hackers with limited prior knowledge, tools, and resources are able to breach voting machines in a matter of minutes.
In 2018, electronic voting machines in Georgia and Texas deleted votes for certain candidates or switched votes from one candidate to another.
The biggest seller of voting machines is doing something that violates Cybersecurity 101, directing that you install remote access software, which would make a machine like that, a magnet for fraudsters and hackers.
These voting machines can be hacked quite easily.
You could easily hack into them. It makes it seem like all these states are doing different things, but in fact, 3 companies are controlling this.
It is the individual voting machines that pose some of the greatest risks.
There are a lot of states that are dealing with antiquated machines, right, which are vulnerable to being hacked.
Workers were able to easily hack into an electronic voting machine. It was possible to switch votes.
43% of American voters use voting machines that researchers have found have serious security flaws including back doors.
We know how vulnerable now our systems were. I know the hackathon that took place last year, where virtually every machine was broken into fairly quickly.
I actually held a demonstration for my colleagues here at the Capitol, where we brought in folks who, before our eyes, hacked election machines, those that are being used in many states.
Aging systems also frequently rely on unsupported software like Windows XP in 2000, which may not receive regular security patches and are thus more vulnerable to the latest methods of cyber attack.
In a close presidential election, they just need to hack one swing state, or maybe one or two, or maybe just a few counties in one.
And it goes on and on and on for 20 minutes. This video is almost 22 minutes long. I'm going to repost it. So if you're, if you like self-flagellation, find me at earthvox on X, and you can watch the whole swine fest. Why was this allowed to continue for a decade? Because the voting machine companies said, hey, make us the exclusive provider of your voting technology, and we can make sure that you win some elections. No sweat. Easily done. How many people do you know in your life that would tell you, I'm not going to do that? Even though there's the temptation of wealth and riches beyond my wildest dreams, I could just keep doing this job in Congress that I've been doing that gets cushier and cushier and has me only work 8 months out of the year and pays me what, like 100, I think the congressional salary is like $170K a year. Plus all of the fringe benefits and all of the donations to your charity organizations that you're the president of, or sit on the board of directors and collect another $170,000 or even more, even $1 million or $2 million a year you get paid for being affiliated with this nonprofit or this non-governmental organization or charity organization. And all of the people that you've been doing favors for in the corporate world from your position in politics has paid tremendous dividends. Speaking of dividends, you can also insider trade. You know about all the legislation that's going to impact these companies that you own stock in. So you can legislate one way or the other. Keep yourself wealthy beyond measure. A lesser, I guess maybe a little bit of a lesser heard story this week was about a commander of a space base in Greenland who has been recently fired after, according to the headline, astonishing mass email about J.D. Vance's Greenland visit surfaces. From the New York Post, the officer in charge of a U.S. Space Force base in Greenland was stripped of her command after she sent out a mass email that distanced herself from statements by Vice President J.D. Vance and the Trump administration days after his visit last month. The Space Force announced late Thursday that it removed Colonel Susanna Myers as leader of Patuxent Space Base for, quote, loss of confidence in her ability to lead. Quote, commanders are expected to adhere to the highest standards of conduct, especially as it relates to remaining nonpartisan in the performance of their duties. The Space Operations Command's statement read. Then this is something that we've done away with since, I don't know, maybe Obama. Certainly when most of our American politicians decided that they were going to attempt to wet their beak in the accounts of globalism. Now everything is partisan. Why? Because we have to usher in the new world order. We need one world totalitarian government. We need to keep these vermin, us, under our boots. We want them off of our beaches and out of our airplanes and restaurants and all of the places that we like to go. We don't want to share with the unwashed masses. We need laws. We need laws and rules to keep the air clean. She writes in her email, the views discussed by Vance during his visit on March 28, quote, are not reflective of Patuxent Space Base. Quote, I spent the weekend thinking about Friday's visit, the actions taken, the words spoken, and how it must have affected each of you. She wrote to her subordinates in the email obtained by military.com and verified by the Space Force, which is unavailable, unfortunately. She continues in the email, I do not presume to understand current politics, but what I do know is the concerns of the U.S. administration discussed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of Patuxent Space Base. I commit that for as long as I am lucky enough to lead this base, all our flags will fly proudly together, Myers added. Myers sent out the email on March 31st, seemingly upset over comments made by Vance about potentially annexing Greenland. The base-wide message was a highly unusual move, as publicly speaking out against the executive branch is viewed as not falling in line with the commander-in-chief and signals to the world that the U.S. military is a disjointed force. Myers, who spent nearly 20 years as an Air Force officer before jumping branches to the Space Force in May 2021, oversaw roughly 200 airmen and guardians while in command of the U.S.'s northernmost military installation. So she got the nod to be presumably promoted to the Space Force just a few months after Biden took office. Then she sends out this email distancing herself from the executive for whatever reason. And now she's gone. Appropriately so, I believe. In total, 650 men and women, including civilian contractors from Greenland, Denmark, and Canada, live and work at Patuxent Space Base. Most appropriately, people loyal to the United States and the Trump administration got this email and exposed her. That's what I found most exciting about this story. Our military isn't corrupted beyond repair. One of this Susanna Myers leader's subordinates got this email, said this is bullshit, and sent it to the Trump administration or the press or the White House. And now she's gone. She had the hubris to think that she could run this base on her own little island within Greenland and say, oh, don't worry. We're not for the Trump administration. We think, and this is a perfect example of what the bureaucracy thinks it can get away with from administration to administration. She thought she could play partisan politics. She thought she could play games. But she didn't know that her subordinates do not support her the way they support Trump and the Trump admin. And now she's gone. And rightfully so. Now I am out of time. Not really. But I have two more things, and I think only time to get to one. And I think I want to hear what Bill Maher had to say about his interview with Trump. And a shout out to the Vigilant Fox on X, @Vigilant Fox. for aggregating all of these highlights. Bill Maher has been, many people would say a disgusting political comedian. He's had many shows on cable news. He also strikes me as sort of not very, I don't want to say he's not very intelligent, but he's not very, I think he's not very motivated. Maybe his age, his tenure has diminished his motivation a little bit, taken a little bit of the fire out of his belly. He seems to be a little bit uninformed. And I feel like he gets a lot of his opinions from CNN and MSNBC, which he then regurgitates on his many cable talk shows and podcasts. The Vigilant Fox writes, Bill Maher breaks his silence on his private meeting with President Trump. You won't believe what you're about to hear. He writes in his next comment, Bill Maher just spilled the beans about his private meeting with President Trump on his show Real Time, describing Trump as, quote, different in person than he expected.
As you know, 12 days ago, I had dinner with President Trump, a dinner that was set up by my friend Kid Rock, because we share a belief that there's got to be something better than hurling insults from 3,000 miles away.
Right here.
And let me first say that to all the people who treated this like it was some kind of summit meeting, you're ridiculous. Like I was going to sign a treaty or something. I have no power. I'm a fucking comedian, and he's the most powerful leader in the world. I'm not the leader of anything, except maybe a contingent of centrist-minded people who think there's got to be a better way of running this country than hating each other every minute. So, thank you. Okay, so meet up in person. Maybe it'll be different. Spoiler alert, it was. First good sign, before I left for the Capitol, I had my staff collect and print out this list of almost 60 different insulting epithets that the president has said about me. Things like stupid, dummy, lowlife dummy, sleazebag, sick, sad, stone cold crazy. Really a dumb guy, fired like a dog, his show is dead. It was 60. I brought this to the White House because I wanted him to sign it, which he did. Which he did with good humor. And I know as I say that, millions of liberal sphincters just tightened. Oh my God, Bill, are you going to say something nice about him? What I'm going to do is report exactly what happened. You decide what you think about it. And if that's not enough pure Trump hate for you, I don't give a fuck.
What a guy. Classy, eh? So, oh no, I've just lost everything. Not to worry, it's coming right back. Got contingencies. So this is clip one. I'm really excited what we have to get into on clip two, because this matters to me in that Bill Maher has the ear of a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals listen to his show and form their opinions based on the things that he says about what he has learned. This is why it's kind of tragic that most of the information he gets from just sort of having MSNBC on in the background.
And he gave me a bunch of hats, but he didn't ask me to take a picture in one, which I appreciated. The guy I met is not the person who the night before the dinner shit-tweeted a bunch of nasty crap about how he thought this dinner was a bad idea and what a deranged asshole I was. I read it and thought, oh, what a lovely way to welcome someone to your house.
See, this is why Bill Maher comes around to Donald Trump, because he realizes that Donald Trump is a regular guy when he's going to work, when he's waking up in the morning, when he's having Bill Maher over for dinner, than he is when he goes in front of the camera and when he writes things on social media.
But when I got there, that guy wasn't living there. Now, does Trump want respect? Of course. Who doesn't? My friend said to me, "What are you going to wear to the White House?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm not going to dress like Zelensky, I'll tell you that." Okay. Just for starters, he laughs. I've never seen him laugh in public, but he does, including at himself. And it's not fake. Believe me, as a comedian of 40 years, I know a fake laugh when I hear it. And I thank you for them.
Why this matters because Bill Maher gets a lot of views. He gets a lot of clicks. He influences a lot of people. 1.1 million people have seen this video. Almost another million people have seen this next clip.
At one point, we were walking through it is an amazing tour of the whole house. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but it must have been something with the 2020 election, because I know he used the word lost. And I distinctly remember saying, "Wow, I never thought I'd hear you say that." He didn't get mad. He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy. Bob, Kid Rock, told me the night before, he said, if you want to get a word in edgewise, you're going to have to cut him off. He'll just go on. Not at all. I've had so many conversations with prominent people who are much less connected, people who don't look you in the eye, people who don't really listen because they just want to get to their next thing, people whose response to things you say just doesn't track, like, what? None of that with him. And he mostly steered the conversation to, what do you think about this? I know, your mind is blown, so's mine.
Boy, this is a great step. I wonder if Bill Maher even knows how much of an enormous impact this is going to have on the culture. He literally just did a whole segment on going to meet with Donald Trump and saying, hey, guys, he's not really that bad. I mean, he tells you that he's different than the person he is when he goes on TV and when he posts on social media. What I think needs to be said further, which I don't think he's brave enough to communicate, is that Donald Trump is not the person that the media makes him out to be. He's not the person that Democrat politicians make him out to be. And he learned that when he went to visit Donald Trump and have dinner with him. And boy, am I excited. And I really, we podcasters, we content creators, we have to tell the truth, no matter what it means for us. And Bill Maher, with everything that he has on the line, with his legacy of TV shows and podcasts, and no doubt contracts, he went out and told his audience that you don't know Donald Trump the way you think you know Donald Trump. And that's huge. Because correcting the culture isn't happening with tariff deals and budget bills. It's happening in Hollywood. It's happening on Netflix. It's happening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube and Rumble and Twitch and X and all of the places that you can find this podcast, along with many others. know why my music isn't working. Great. Just for no. Oh, wait. Yes, I do. Here it comes. Well, that was almost a super awesome outro to the show. I don't know, man. I gotta do something different. I don't know. Maybe I need to practice more. I think about doing a show every morning, and it's an incredibly daunting task. What do you think about that? If you've made it this far into the end of the show, I would really appreciate an email, maybe at the realearthvox@protonmail.com, or leave a comment. Something in the chat. Send me a text message if you have my phone number. I know some of you do. I hope you enjoyed what I had for you today. I had fun putting it together. It's made rocky by these technical difficulties that I can't seem to escape. I have a game plan. I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep making it better. Please rate, review, share the show, follow the show, subscribe. I make no money from doing this. I only get the satisfaction of making hopefully great content. So thank you for joining me. I'll be going live again next Sunday at 11 with a completely different way of doing things. I think I'll probably do another test stream later on today, see how it goes. If you're floating around on the internet, join me, hop in. I'd love to see how it goes with a guest, hypothetically, or a co-host in this live streaming application software and how it all pans out. So until next time, thank you again for joining me. I'll be back.